So, you're a Ford owner, and you've been hit with the dreaded P0191 code. Yeah, it's a frustrating one for sure. But hey, don't start worrying about a massive repair bill just yet. In this explainer, we're going to break it all down and give you a step-by-step game plan to figure this out like a pro. You'll save time, money, and a whole lot of headache. Let's get right into it.
Does this look familiar? That check engine light is just staring back at you, and your car? Well, it's just not driving right. Maybe it feels sluggish, or it hesitates when you step on the gas. If you're sitting there nodding your head right now, you are in exactly the right place.
All right, first things first. What is this P0191 code, really? Before we can even think about fixing it, we have to understand what our car is trying to tell us. So let's translate some of this mechanic speak into plain English.
Okay, so the textbook definition is fuel rail pressure sensor circuit range/performance. The keywords you really need to focus on are range and performance. All this means is that your engine's brain, the main computer, is getting signals from the fuel pressure sensor that just don't add up. The pressure readings it's seeing are either all over the place or they just don't match what the engine is actually doing.
Let me give you a really simple way to think about this. Imagine you're watering your lawn. You're expecting a nice, steady, consistent stream of water from that hose, right? But what if the pressure was suddenly spiking, then dropping down to a trickle, and then spiking again? That's pretty much what your car's computer is seeing with the fuel. It expects a steady, predictable flow to the engine, but instead, it's getting total chaos.
Okay, so that's the technical side, but what does this problem actually feel like when you're the one behind the wheel? Let's talk about the symptoms you're probably already noticing.
Well, number one, obviously, is that check engine light. But you're feeling it too, aren't you? The engine might hesitate, or maybe it surges forward for no reason. It could be a real pain to start, or it might even stall out on you. You've almost definitely felt a drop in power, and when you're stopped at a light, the idle is probably rough and shaky. You might even hear a weird whining or whistling sound coming from the engine bay. Sound familiar?
All right, now that we know what we're dealing with and what it feels like, it is time to play detective. We need to line up our list of suspects, all the common things that could be causing this P0191 code to pop up.
Our investigation is going to cover the whole fuel system. You know, the cause could be something mechanical, like a fuel filter that's totally clogged up, or a fuel pump that's on its last legs. Or it could be electrical. Maybe the sensor itself is just giving bad information, or the module that controls the pump is fried. It could even be damaged wiring, or something as simple as a blown fuse or that little inertia switch getting tripped.
Now this is a really important way to look at it. The problem almost always falls into one of two big categories. Either it's an electrical issue, where the car thinks there's a pressure problem, or it's a fuel delivery issue, where there's a real problem with getting fuel to the engine. Our whole diagnostic plan is built around one single goal, figuring out which of those two paths we're on before we start spending any money.
Okay, here we go. This is the real heart of it. We are not just going to guess and start throwing new parts at the car. That's a great way to waste money. Instead, we're going to follow a clear, logical, step-by-step game plan to find the exact cause of the problem.
Our plan is a simple three-step journey. First, we start with the easy stuff, the checks that don't cost a dime. Second, we perform the single most important diagnostic you can do for this code, the pressure test. And third, we analyze the results of that test, because that's what's going to tell us exactly where to look next.
Step one is all about using your eyes. First, take a good look at the wiring that goes to the fuel rail pressure sensor. Is it chewed up, frayed, or is the connector loose? Next, pull out your owner's manual and check all the fuses and relays related to the fuel system. And finally, find that inertia switch. It's usually in the passenger side footwell, and just make sure the little button on top is pressed all the way down. Any one of these could be a zero-cost fix, so please do not skip this step.
All right, if all the visual checks look good, it's time for the big one, the single most important test. If you have a scan tool, you want to look at the desired fuel pressure versus the actual fuel pressure the computer is seeing. Then you're going to back that up with a good old-fashioned mechanical fuel pressure gauge right on the fuel rail. This right here, this is the moment of truth. This is what tells us if the sensor is lying or if there's a real fuel supply problem.
And this slide right here shows the two possible outcomes perfectly. Let's look at the left side. If your mechanical gauge shows good, steady pressure that's right where it's supposed to be, then your fuel delivery is fine. The problem is that the sensor's a liar. It's sending bad data to the computer. Now look at the right side. If your mechanical gauge shows low or bouncing pressure, well, the sensor's actually telling the truth. You have a real fuel delivery problem that you need to track down.
See? See how that one single test just gave us a crystal clear direction to go in? Now that we've split the problem in two, let's talk about the specific fixes for each of those paths.
So if your mechanical pressure test came back looking good, your path forward is pretty clear. The pump is pumping, the filter's doing its job, but that fuel rail pressure sensor is just feeding junk data to the computer. That makes the sensor itself your #1 suspect. The next step is either to test its electrical circuit or, honestly, just replace it.
Now for the other scenario, if your mechanical pressure was low, we always start with the simplest and cheapest fix first. A clogged up fuel filter is a super common reason for low pressure, and let's be real, it's a maintenance item that probably needs to be changed anyway. For just a few bucks and a little bit of time, you might solve the entire problem right then and there.
But what if you put in a new filter and the pressure is still low? Okay, now your investigation is pointing towards the bigger components. It's most likely either the fuel pump itself is failing, or it's the fuel pump driver module. That's a little computer that actually controls the pump, and it's a really common part to fail on these Fords. If that module goes bad, the pump simply won't get the commands it needs to work correctly.
So once you've replaced the part that your diagnosis pointed to, whether it was the sensor, the filter, or the pump, you got to close the loop. First, use your scan tool to clear that P0191 trouble code out of the computer's memory. Then, and this is important, take the car for a real test drive to make sure everything is running smoothly and, most importantly, that check engine light stays off for good.
And that really brings us to the most important takeaway here. A P0191 code isn't a diagnosis. It's not the problem itself, it's a clue. It's the start of an investigation. And by following that diagnostic trail step by step, you can find the actual cause and avoid wasting a ton of time and money just throwing parts at the problem.
So there you have it, a clear, logical path to take on that P0191 code. The only question left is, now that you have this game plan, what's the very first thing you're going to go out and check? Thanks for tuning in.